Welcome back. Time for the panel now. We've got Michael Cooney from the Chifley Research Centre in Canberra, and with me on set, Adam Crichton, the economics correspondent for The Australian. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen. Lots to get through. We've got burqa and budget, and we'll do everything but the football. But I want to start off on the Iraq deployment. Of course, we're waiting for word that the deployment, our fighter jets will go into action any day now. Michael, a crucial part about what's being planned, Australia's involvement in this coalition in the Middle East at the moment, a crucial element of that is the bipartisan support. How difficult do you think that has been for Bill Shorten to deliver? And will it be easy for him to maintain it? He's put some conditions around it.
Yeah, I think Bill's made a really clear statement of where the Labor Party's view is at, and I think that's supported by the overwhelming majority of Labor Party members and MPs. He's also put some clear boundaries on it too, and those are sensible ones. So I don't think that's a political challenge for Labor, but also it's pretty clear to me that that's not been the starting point for his analysis of this. He's looked at the security situation, supports the President's strategy and the Prime Minister's response to that, and we're in.
He's been very careful to say, though, that Labor doesn't, it doesn't rule it out, but doesn't support any action at this stage in Syria. Now, most of the other countries involved in this coalition so far have been involved in action across the Syrian border. Would this be a problem for the government, do you think, that if they tried to get involved, have our flights launch action into Syria? Do you think Labor would draw the line at that?
Well, certainly there's no blank cheque, and it's been interesting to see the Prime Minister quite cautious on his language about Syria as well, and I think that reflects the legal position that our forces would be in, or arguably be in, as much as the strategic question as well. So there's a strong strategic interest for Australia to be part of this coalition, and we're delivering that in our current form, and there's not a clear strategic interest for us to escalate or expand into Syria ourselves.
Yeah, Adam, I get the sense that one of the reasons the government so far, that the Abbott government has ruled out Syria, is because they want to make it easier for Labor. I think they're very conscious of actually wanting to keep Bill Shorten in the tent, maintain that bipartisan support.
Yeah, well, that's possibly true. I think it's much easier to do that this time. I mean, it's a far broader-based coalition internationally this time around compared to.
Barack Obama's done well. A lot of people would criticise him for, I suppose, lateness in getting to this position. But once he committed to building a coalition, he's built a very good coalition with a lot of Arab nations.
That's right. I think it's very good to see the Arab nations involved. I think those countries really need to take a stronger role in this issue. Actually, I think they've been negligent for too long. I mean, ultimately, it's their backyard; it's not our backyard. But I do think Australia's doing the right thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, our contribution's fairly small. It's only 6 planes. I mean, I know wars, very thankfully, are a thing of the past now for rich countries largely. But I mean, if you go back to Australia's involvement in the First World War, Second World War, the Vietnam War, Korean War, the Vietnam War, they were, far larger contributions. So this is really a very modest contribution, 6 planes.
I just want to have a discussion about the time frame here, and I suppose the overall objectives. And here's a little bit of David Johnson, the Defence Minister, talking about how long he expected Australia's involvement to last.
Look, I've been talking to our generals on the ground in the Middle East. We share some optimism, can I tell you, about how quickly we can do this. But look, we must say months and more, because, we want to under-promise and over-deliver here.
David Johnson speaking on the ABC this morning. Michael Cooney, look, I don't want to be pessimistic here, but we need to be realistic. Now, we've seen this movie before, talking about limited, strategic, time-limited action, and we were there years and years later in this very country. This has all the potential of getting a lot more difficult, especially when we don't really know what the end point looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you'd remember Prime Minister Howard said months, not years, which I suppose is literally true if you think about 100 months or something. But I thought Minister Johnson's intervention was a bit odd today, to be honest. It wasn't really didn't reflect the tone of international leaders or the Prime Minister earlier in the week. Frankly, the first half of his sentence wasn't under-promising and over-delivering, quite the contrary. I'm not sure that it was a very helpful statement by the Defence Minister.
I think you're exactly right. When he talks about confidence, Adam Crichton, that's not under-promising, that's raising expectations.
I suppose so, but you would expect that the coalition should do well. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the combined military might of the Western world, basically, plus various Arab nations up against 10 to 15,000 somewhat crazy murderous rebels. I mean, they're not a state, of course, as has been said many times. So you would think that we'd be victorious and fairly quickly at that.
Well, I want to talk about the domestic situation, tensions within our own community here. We've had the raised terror alert. We've had raids, of course, by Australian Federal Police and other police forces across the country. That horrible death of an extremist being shot by police after he attacked them in Melbourne. And on the back of all that, we've had this really quite inane debate about burkas in Parliament. Your thoughts first, Michael, on just how helpful all that's been.
Oh, it was horrible, wasn't it? Like, it was real poor fellow my country stuff last Thursday. I just thought we were weaker and more divided at the end of the day. It just wasn't our best day wasn't the best day for the Parliament, and didn't really reflect the goodwill and the unity in the country, I don't think.
Is it just a dumb thing for the Speaker to decide? Those are just a dumb decision, and people should be able to accept that and move on instead of screaming racist at each other because you dare to mention that the burqa might be seen as an instrument of oppression?
Well, it wasn't an isolated outbreak. I mean, this has been coming for a while. This has been worked up for a while, and in fairness to those, and I share the criticism. Like, we've had it explicitly backgrounded and briefed out that the tactic is to start with security, right? That's what Christensen says himself publicly. That's his public advice to Lambie. It's briefed out that that's his private advice from the PMO. So no one's inventing their unease at the approach that's been taken here.
So what are you saying there?
I think that on the one hand,
who said they're starting with security?
That's been the public argument between different like Christensen has publicly criticised Lambie, saying, "Oh, you're blowing the argument and you're discrediting the anti-burqa movement by not focusing on the security arguments." And we've similarly seen it reported, and they're unconfirmed reports, but they're not denied, that that's the same advice he's been given privately and politically. So that's a worry.
Well, I think it's fine. I think if you're going to talk about burqas in Parliament, you'd want to talk about it on security grounds, wouldn't you? That's the only grounds really
it's a stronger
worthwhile
argument in the
about.
sense, if that's actually his view, that's one thing, but the inference that you draw from those reports is that that's not his view and that the security argument is a pretext.
Yeah, a pretext for what, I suppose. If we had this debate a year ago, Adam, most people would be saying they don't like the burqa. They worry that it signifies oppression of women. The left would be saying that as well. Hillary Clinton has said these sorts of things in the past. But because Abbott said it now, there's screams of racism. Sure, look, we've got to be careful, of course, and no one wants to see anyone victimised. And I thought the decision by the Speaker and the President was just plain dumb and unnecessary. But we should be able to speak about the burqa without this screaming match, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I completely agree. The measures in question were completely ridiculous and unnecessary. They were embarrassing. It was embarrassing to the two presiding officers involved. But I don't think it is wrong to be able to talk about the issue of banning burqas generally. I mean, perhaps arguably the most civilised nation in the world, France, has banned these garments in public places for about 4 years now, and they have a very strong intellectual tradition. And they, as far as I understand, they have banned it on the grounds of the fact that these garments are offensive to women and they are offensive to the modern age.
They've done it supposedly for community cohesion, but
that's right.
I don't agree with the ban, but
it's not anti-intellectual though to talk about it.
No, exactly. I think you could discuss it, especially when you look at what's happened in Europe. Just hold your thought for a moment, Michael, because we'll come back on this issue. Sure. I just want to share an example of some of the public debate that we've seen in the last couple of days, and in particular a Muslim festival at the Lakemba Mosque on Saturday, and show you the reception and the words that we heard from either side of politics. First up, here's Scott Morrison, the Immigration Minister, speaking at Lakemba.
We also come together as Australians to remember those who are a long way away from here today. Australian Defence Forces on all of our behalves. Today and in the weeks and months ahead will represent all of us as we seek to restore peace and freedom to those who have taken away. And so it's important that as a community of faith today we celebrate peace and all of those who would seek to have that peace restored all around the world, but particularly in the Middle East.
Now, tough gig there for Scott Morrison, but what he's saying effectively, of course, is this is about saving Muslim lives and we all should support it, that military action in the Middle East. Voice there calling out liar, liar. Now, I heard some media reporting saying there was a lot of heckling, a lot of interjecting. You heard it yourself. I mean, I could hear one voice very clearly. Just make up your own mind. But that was a bit of the flavour of what was happening at Lakemba on Saturday. Here's opposition leader Bill Shorten, who spoke there as well.
Right now we face challenges at home too. The challenges of division and exclusion. There is hope in the promise of tolerance, love, harmony and peace. There is no hope in the promise of racism, intolerance and condoning bigotry and violence.
There we go, Opposition Leader Bill Shorten. Michael Cooney, your thoughts on those speeches at the mosque?
Well, it sounds like a pretty Australian event. There's plenty of interjections. That's happens to any politician on any podium in Australia. That's a good thing. I think that it's just really important. People who've been critical of the government or critical of the presiding officers haven't tried to shut down the debate. They've entered the debate. And I think many people are frustrated by what they see as the limits of libertarianism in this.
Yep.
Like we've had a 9-month seminar about how apparently you've got a right, you don't have a right not to be offended, and now all of a sudden you've got a right not to be confronted. Like, it's been very odd. And I think that for people on the progressive side of politics who instinctively want to put their arm around the weak, what they see here is people who believe in liberty for the strong and don't seem to believe in liberty for the weak.
Yeah, no, wise words. I mean, I think it's important that we should be able to debate these things, but I suppose that's where you have to draw the line, Adam. It's a matter of whether you engage in a discussion and disagree and get right into the robust debate rather than scream at people and try and shut down their point of view.
Yeah, look, that's right. I think it's sad that people take it to the other level of abuse and so forth. I mean, but I mean, it's kind of inevitable in these debates. These are highly emotional issues and people are going to feel strongly about them. And so I don't think it's surprising that there are hecklers in those speeches and so forth. It's not ideal, we don't like it, but, you know, it's impossible to think it won't happen.
No, and I mean, as Michael points out, any politician in Australia who hasn't been heckled, and actually that would be one of the most common lines thrown at them too, is liar. It's pretty commonplace. But anyway, that's why I like to raise these issues on this program, because I think the best thing you can do about these issues to take tension out of a situation is to speak about them in a sensible way. And there's been a little bit of a loss of that over the last few days, in my view. So we'll just keep talking about it, because I think we're going to be talking about these issues not for many months, but for many years to come. We're going to take a break now. I'll be back with the panel afterwards to have some of them look at some of the domestic issues, especially, of course, that budget challenge.
Hello.
Say hello to fresh Eclipse mints.
At Shell, we're working hard to broaden the world's energy mix, supplying natural gas for the generation of electricity with around half the CO2 emissions of coal, producing biofuel made from renewable sugarcane with our partner in Brazil, and here in Australia, finding ways to fuel our future. Let's broaden the world's energy mix. Let's go.
If you want great value hardware,
go where the tradies go.
Amazing spring deals. Finish paint 6 litre pack with brush only $49. Karcher pressure washer, top value just $169. Go where the tradies go. Home timber and hardware.
I find Nature's Own glucosamine with chondroitin really makes a difference. I use it for my joints. It helps me get up and go and enjoy my paddleboarding. Ask for Nature's Own glucosamine with chondroitin.
who's hungry? Oh, man, good. Never too early for gravy.
Clear your Sunday schedule for 20% off Dick Smith on eBay Big Sundays. On now.
Hungry Jack's Chicken Crunch Range. Get extra crunchy chicken breast in classic, peri-peri or spicy jalapeno for just $4.25.
Did someone get my spicy jalapeno?
The burgers are better at Hungry Jack's.
Are you looking for a quicker and easier way to get rid of weeds? Then why not try Zero Rapid Weed Killer from Yates? Its unique, rapid formulation kills weeds fast, roots and all. Great gardens are Yates Gardens.
We smelt bolognese.
Yeah.
Add Campbell's Real Stock to make it even tastier.
Campbell's Real Stock, Australia's favourite stock, made from scratch.
I think there's a drive to create in everything. With that purpose comes beauty. And whilst grand designs can come from scale, there are moments that'll make you take a breath. No matter the size. That's the nature of design.
The brand new season of Grand Designs Australia starts Thursday 8:30, only on Lifestyle.
From the misogyny speech to the leadership spill, Julia Gillard's term as Prime Minister was eventful. She reveals the secrets, the policies and relationships that defined her term in the top job on Australia's Public Affairs Channel.
Welcome back to Viewpoint. I suppose if you're really interested in the grand final, you'll be watching that and series linking this to watch it later. But it's getting pretty tight in the grand final, I'll tell you that much. Look, I want to get on to the budget now. I want to get perspectives from our panellists. Down in Canberra, Michael Cooney from the Chifley Research Centre, and here from the Australian, the economics correspondent from the Australian, Adam Crichton. Firstly, I want to talk about the budget challenge. And Adam, it's getting more difficult for the government, not easier. The Iraq deployment and the extra security measures are going to cost more. So Matthias Cormann and Joe Hockey have to find more money for that. The iron ore price is going down, and projections about Chinese growth seem to be coming backwards. Just how difficult is the situation looking for this government's second budget?
Yeah, look, we're probably looking at a few $1 billion of less revenue, I would say, this financial year from all of those factors that you just mentioned. I mean, the war itself is going to be a couple $100 million a year, I think. I mean, it is astonishing, just as a footnote, how expensive modern warfare is. I mean, this is just, as we said, 6 planes, basically, and some accompanying personnel, and that's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
But so Matthias Cormann and Joe Hockey haven't even got their first budget through, and they're already in a situation where they're not able to rule in or rule out tax increases, further cuts, just to make the targets they've already set.
That's very sensible. I mean, just speaking to some senior cabinet ministers this week, actually, there's still a great deal of confidence amongst them that their signature reforms in the budget will still be passed at some point before the next election. And I'm talking here about the co-payment, I'm talking about the higher education reforms, and of course the welfare reforms. I mean, on the welfare reforms, we're already seeing some movement from Labor.
Some
and that's
gets
very
through,
good.
but with the lower savings than what they've initiated.
But look, at least it's something. And look, as far as the Palmer United Party is concerned, we have to wait until after the Queensland election. So lots of political strategists out there are saying that Clive, that Mr Palmer, I should say, is being very obstructive because he wants to inflict maximum damage on the coalition before the Queensland election, but after that he will be more amenable to sensible changes. And I think that there's a good chance that will be the case. I mean, the MRRT deal was very, very promising, I must say.
Well, no doubt it does make a difficult budget challenge even more difficult. Matthias Cormann on Sky News this morning, not ruling anything in or out. Have a quick look.
We inherited a challenging situation. The budget was our plan to repair the budget, and obviously to the extent that there are changes, you got to address them.
Michael Cooney, you'd find some way to save some money, wouldn't you? My suggestion of getting rid of that PPL would be all right, wouldn't it?
So that's a good start, yeah. And we gave them $3 billion this week. That has been on the table since about 20 minutes after the budget was handed down, and they finally took it. So that was good of them, but that's not movement. That's us having stayed in the same position for 4 months, and the government finally took some, well, basically swallowed their pride and accepted those savings. And it basically shows that if the government's got smart and fair savings, then Labor will back them in. If they've got dumb and unfair savings, then Labor won't back them in.
Well, we're going to run out of time here because I'd love to spend 10 minutes talking about the next topic, but Michael, I'll get a quick assessment from you. Next week there'll be a lot of focus on the first anniversary for Bill Shorten in the job. There'll be a lot of focus on the polls, where he's done reasonably well over the first year. My view is that structurally and in the lead up to the election, he's in all sorts of strife because the three three key issues where Labor really got smashed at the last year's election: the carbon tax, climate change policy area, border protection area, and of course fiscal management area. Labor really hasn't changed its approach at all. Same three policies, same three problems for Labor. Bill Shorten's wasted his first year, Michael.
Oh, I don't agree there. Look, he hasn't had as good a first year as opposition leader as Kevin Rudd did. Kevin Rudd got elected Prime Minister before his first year was out. But putting aside Kevin Rudd, he's had a very good first year as opposition leader and better than many have had in the last 20 or 30 years.
He's got to take the same policies to the election, is he? The same policies that that Labor got hammered on last year. They can't surely take all those to the next election.
Well, I don't think that's quite right. The first thing I'd say is that I'm not sure we lost the last election on policy. I think we lost the last election on disunity, and up to a point rightly. And certainly Labor and the caucus have learned that lesson, and that's clearly demonstrated right now. The policy questions are real and they've got to be addressed. That's why you have a 3-year term. But certainly his first year has been highly successful and they should be well pleased.
All right, Michael Cooney, thanks very much for joining us tonight on Viewpoint. Adam Crichton, no time for you to have a free kick on that, but I do think there's a lot of people in Labor who are suggesting that it's all about disunity the last election. I think those policy issues have got to be addressed too. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned now for Paul Murray Live.